Hey guys, welcome back to part one in a 10-part series that we began. We officially begin today, but that we introduced last week, talking about our life together, our life together, our collapse, our rebirth, the cleanup, the cleaning up the mess that we made, and kind of like walking through some of the healing that we went through and sharing with you guys some of the healing techniques and some of the things that we utilized and we I guess we dove into in this healing journey to really live a more powerful life. And I'm here with my bride. She's here next to me. If you're just listening, you can't.
Hello.
You can't. Yeah, there you go.
I'm here.
So if you're listening, you can't see her, but if you're watching YouTube, you can. And listen, I would love it if you are just checking us out. If you're just finding this, I would love if you subscribed, if you liked, if you shared this podcast, if you if you get any value out of it. But over the next 10 weeks, we're going to be telling a very powerful story. And the way I framed it last week is I am a public speaker. I'm a coach, a published author, a speaker. And oftentimes when I'm up on stage, I'm telling the story about our life. And when after the speaking event, there's people, mainly women, that corner her and say, I want to hear it from your perspective. So we're working, and the intention and what we're working on is making sure Angie's voice is heard equally to mine. And I know I'm introducing this a lot, and I'm going to turn it over to her. But the point is we want to get our story in the world and start a more powerful collaboration, because Angie has a lot to offer that has been buried and surfaces from time to time, but we're diving in and we're exposing it.
Yeah, and we've met so many couples over the years who've experienced situations quite similar to ours and who haven't been able to navigate through this in a way to get them to the other side. So we're just hoping that by sharing our story, we can possibly help someone else navigate this journey together.
And I'm sure we'll get into some of this later in a later episode, later in the series. But one of the things that I love most about this is every time we've done a podcast episode together, Angie's voice has strengthened. She's become more confident, more courageous, showed up more. And I love seeing the light shine in you. And I love seeing how you are becoming better every time you jump on here and you just share who you are, and that lights me up. And that's pretty opposite of how I showed up for the first 16 years in our marriage, and that's why we'll tell that story.
Yeah, I'm trying. It's still a little awkward, but yeah.
What's awkward about it?
It's just everything, the camera, and I don't know, just hearing. I hate hearing my voice. Mike loves listening to his voice, and I'm personally not a fan. I critique the hell out of it. I talk too fast. I laugh too loud. I am my own worst enemy.
Yeah. So just to clarify, she doesn't like hearing her voice or mine.
Yeah. Well, I love hearing your voice. It's just over and over.
Same story, same stuff over and over and over. Such is the life of Mike and Angie. But listen, today, I think what we're going to focus on today is, since this is part one, we're going to start at the beginning. And what we're going to do is we're going to set the foundation for the rest of the series, where we really talk about Angie's childhood, the environment that she grew up in, because that had a lot to do with what happened in our lives. My childhood environment, which had a whole lot to do with what happened in our lives, how we immediately got off to a very, very toxic start in our relationship. And that toxicity kept building over the course of 16 years. So, and then we're not gonna go a whole lot into the future this year with this episode, but we're really gonna set the stage and tell the story of what's the past of Mike and Angie, and what did it look like before our collapse in 2016?
There's no way we're going to get through just the childhood thing in one episode. This is not going to make it through 10. It's going to be longer than that if we're going to start from the childhood thing, because it
might be a longer episode.
Yeah.
So, but we'll go until the story's told, and a longer story, a longer episode is okay too. So, Angie,
Yes.
let's start with you.
Yeah.
So I often talk about, when I'm up on stage, I talk about me, and I talk about the childhood, the environment that created, the shadows that were in my life. But the story that you have to share about your childhood is even more powerful and even more painful. So not that it's a comparison, but really is important for you to set the tone in stage and not exaggerate, but to really tell the truth of where you came from.
Yeah. I mean, I was born to a impoverished family in Northern Virginia, right outside of DC, Alexandria. And my mom was a 16-year-old runaway, met my dad, and they had me when she was 19, he was 21, and pretty much just dumped me off at my grandma's right away. It was just their relationship was toxic. They got divorced when I was 2. Again, dumped off at my grandma's, who miss her every day. She was my rock, my angel. And just life growing up was, I loved my grandma, but our entire, we were your typical loud Irish drinking family. Our little apartment was open to every drunk in the city. My dad had a revolving group of women for the longest time, and then they found the one who would eventually become my stepmom. My mom passed away when I was 6 years old, so that was kind of a tough thing. And then I found my grandmother dead of suicide just a year and a half or so later. Just child. My dad.
You found her.
Yeah, they sent. Yeah, she wasn't responding to anyone's calls or letters, because after my mom died, she just shut herself down completely. And we were sending her letters, and we were knocking on her door and calling, and she never answered. So they decided wanted to do a wellness check, and they sent me in. So she was literally laying on the floor with a empty bottle of vodka, and she was playing a game of Yahtzee by herself. That's how I found her. And all of my letters that I wrote her they were the only letters that were open of all the letters that our family sent. So that's kind of stuck with me. But yeah, my dad was a heroin addict. He was, I saw him get stabbed when I was super young. I saw him try to rob a cab driver. I mean, it was just crazy. I was sexually assaulted at a very young age by my dad's friends, my father. I mean, it was just crazy. And
what happened when they found out about it? When your dad and stepmom found out about it, what
found out about what?
When it was understood about the sexual assault.
Yeah, no, that was when
what was the response?
That my dad was part of it. No, my dad's his friends were part of it. Like he'd have his buddies over. I remember we moved all over the place. I think one year we moved houses like 6 or 7 times. I was in different school districts all year long. I don't think I ever stayed at a school more than half a year. No, but my dad's friends, we would make us sit on their laps, and they would touch us. And, first it started as me, and then later on there were other children involved. That's not my story to tell. So I'll just talk for me. And, they'd have their drug dealers over and just pretty much just had their way with us. But I think you're talking about the part where when I got raped when I was 13, I was raped when I was 13. And when I told my stepmother, and she just called me a stupid slut, and it was my fault.
It was your fault. That was the part that it was your fault. That's the environment, the wicked stepmother and with stepsisters that got preferential treatment.
And we lived in and out of flop houses and crack houses and wherever we could stay for periodic times. And there was one whole summer we had no running water, no electricity, we had no food. We would go and we would literally go to the store. And I remember they had the bulk food bins. I think it was Safeway or Giant Food. And we would go and just steal cookies just to get something to eat. And my stepsister had a lot, she, and I will speak on that because she was the reason we ate a lot of days, because she would go and steal food for us. We go and knock on neighbors' doors and ask to borrow hot dogs. That's the one I remember, stealing toilet paper and going and getting water from the gas station to flush the toilet once a day. It was crazy. So I finally left. I got the guts and up, and I was like, this is not. I always knew though that was not the life that I was destined for. Like that was not where I saw myself. Like I always envisioned the family and the house. And I had I had the ability to make friends with the kids who had money, which was really odd because I was, always wearing hand-me-down clothes and stuff. But I never felt less than around those people who had money and having sleepovers and single family homes. And I was like, oh, this is what I want. And I remember planting that seed very young. So yeah, I left home when I was 14, got emancipated when I was 16. And we'll end that story there because that goes into a whole other another story.
Yeah. And I think there's another cool part that on the brighter side is she had a wealthy aunt, and every once in a while she'd go over a wealthy aunt's house and she would lay in her bed in her down comforter and drive nice cars, and Angie's like, this will be mine.
Yeah. No, yeah. I definitely credit Di with a lot of my drive and ambition to get out of that, because we would stay at her house, and she lived in Bethesda, Maryland, and always had a beautiful condo and a nice convertible. And we would lay there in her bed with our big down comforter and her fancy lotion. And yes, 100% I had. And she also taught me to speak well. So I had to drop out of school in 9th grade when I left home, but literacy was always very important to me. So I remember Di always correcting our language, and I really credit her for why I'm such a grammar Nazi now.
You are a grammar Nazi too, for sure. If Angie ever sees your writing and there is an error, she is judging you. I just want you to know she is judging.
Zoom right to it. Like I cannot. I remember our poor kids giving me a paper to read in 5th grade. I'm like, God damn it, I see 15 errors right there, but I'm not going to say anything.
If she sees a mistake that you make in your writing, she is judging you actively. And when you always knew, just to reiterate this, you always knew that wasn't the life that you were always going to live.
Yeah, and my aunt Di, and these were my stepmother's sisters, and they knew too, which was great. Like hearing that as an adult, and you've heard them say that, like they always knew that I was different and I would be the one that got out, and I am the only one out of the myself and my stepsister and half sister that got out.
Now you had two sisters, or you have two sisters, and they are still kind of living in somewhat
those sisters in jail.
Those circumstances, but I'm talking about being
poverty,
being around the heroin addiction and whatever. It's just they're still kind of trapped.
They're still mired in that poverty-stricken lifestyle. Not necessarily, there's different circumstances to each of them, but they're still in that. And I hate to use this phrase, but I'm going to, in that white trash trailer park lifestyle. Like that's where they are.
Yeah. And I mean, your older sister, we know her. We just kind of hung out with her for the first time in a long time. And she's very envious of what we have and what we've built. And it kind of inspired her a little bit in some way. So it was really cool to share that with her.
And she's very proud of me, and she verbalizes that when, we don't speak often. We have a bit of we've tried to repair our relationship, but it just doesn't seem to work very well. But she is definitely, and she's very proud of what we've built.
Yeah. And this all comes through telling our story. And that's why we're doing stuff like this, is our story inspires people. And hopefully, we can always change our circumstances.
Yeah.
And that sets the stage for me, I guess. I'm 6 years older than Angie. I grew up in Baltimore, Maryland. So not far from Northern Virginia. What is it? 50 miles, 60 miles, something like that.
Not 95 traffic.
Yeah. Well,
hours.
Hours. But the point being is we didn't grow up very far from each other in proximity and geographical proximity, but in years for sure. So my father was 19 years older than my mom. And I like to think my dad looked at my mom. He's 20. He's like, that's a fine young thing. And she's 1, and it is disgusting. Yeah. But we're 6 years apart. So when I was 20, she was still a minor. Right? But that's not when we met. But we met when I was 27 and she was 21. So that's how we got our start. But my childhood was not poverty stricken. It was lower middle class. It was blue collar union steel worker, a little town in a location, I guess, community called Canton in Baltimore. Today, it's more upscale. It's been
gentrified. It's been
gentrified, and the house that I grew up in, we actually got to go back into the house when we visited Baltimore. A lady invited us into my childhood house, and it looks nothing like it. But it was very much a small, dusty, dirty, cluttered Baltimore row house, shotgun style. So when you stood at the front door, you could see all the way through the back. And there were three of us boys, me, and I had two older brothers, my mother, my father, and me and my brothers shared one small bedroom. Angie's very familiar with my childhood home, but it was a small bedroom with 3 beds in there. And there was a lot of my father was the way he approached us. He said, "Boy, if you ever think that you're right and I'm wrong, let's go down the park," because there was a park nearby. And he said, "We'll throw down, and whoever wins, they're right." So, and that's kind of how we solve problems in the house. And that's how my brothers solve problems. So it was pretty typical that they'd be one brother would be washing dishes, the other be drying. And before you know it, they're just on the ground and they're just throwing fists, and they're just hammering at each other. And I know my brother and my father got into a physical altercation before, and my father didn't, my brother only challenged my dad once. So after that, there was no more physical altercations between my dad and us, except for punishments, getting your ass whooped. That was a pretty common thing. But yeah, lower middle class, blue collar, union steel worker, got to work hard. Money is hard to make. Rich people are greedy. Rich people are evil. You'll never have enough. We're made to struggle. This family works. We're hard workers, and you got to work for the man. And union is the only way to frickin' preserve your safety and security. And really, this lower middle class poverty mindset and approach to life, where if anyone has money, they obviously got it in a very, very slimy way. And I remember going down to my Aunt Marge's house. Love you, Aunt Marge, deceased now. But I remember going down to my Aunt Marge's house, and Aunt Marge and my Uncle Chuck had money, and there was a Christmas tree in the house, a little Christmas tree, and there were bills, currency on the tree, like little ornaments. And my Aunt Marge was all excited. She's like, "Go grab a bill." And it was all for all the kids. I get emotional telling the story. And we go over, and you'd pluck a bill off the tree, and sometimes it was 100, and sometimes it was a 50, and sometimes if it was a 20, and if it was too low, she'd say, "Get another one." And you always left, at Christmas time. I get emotional. You always left Aunt Marge's and Uncle Chuck's with a little bit of money. But the point being is, the whole way home, my parents would talk shit about Aunt Marge and Uncle Chuck about flaunting wealth, and really leading with their money, and really they didn't. They were just generous. They were just very generous, and they were very loving, and they were well off. But the point being is, if you had money, there was something wrong with you, and they demonized anybody with money. My parents did the best they could. Angie's parents did the best they could. I think it's important to set the stage there. These aren't bad people. We're all operating at the highest level of consciousness that we possibly can. And those people, just like Angie and I, for most of our lives, we just weren't operating at a very high level of consciousness. So this is no judgment. This is no shame. This is no guilt. This is no blame. This was how we lived. This is how we lived. Yeah. And I think that with what you just said, I think one of the biggest healing points for me, now I'm not jumping ahead with this, but is when I finally sat down and thought about, wow, what did my dad and what did my stepmom have to endure in their childhood that made them, for sure, that turned them into those people that did that? Like, when I actually thought, like, wow, was my stepmom, she must have been sexually abused. Yeah. I mean, the physical, the mental, the emotional abuse she put me through, like, I know she learned that from somewhere, because we only do what we're taught, for sure. And the majority of the time. And that's why I spanked my girls. Right. Yeah. I loved them very much, but I would hurt them because I that was the way I was taught. Yeah. And I just thought that was natural and normal. And we also grew up in the generation where getting our asses whooped with the wooden spoon was was just a part of that. That's made us tougher. And so to finish out, that's the kind of the environment that we grew up in. Oh, and by the way, we were raised in a very strict Catholic environment where you went to church and you looked perfect. Then you came home and the N word was thrown around all the time, and and just it was just it was there was opposing sides, of and I'll put my hand in front of Angie, but opposing sides to what was shown and what was happening, right? Everybody thought the Kitkos had this loving family going on, and meanwhile there's freaking violence and there's blame and all kind of and I don't know. It just I remember seeing my mother got off the phone, and she obviously, somebody called her about my brother, and then she came in with a butter knife. My brother was sleeping on a couch, and she just started hitting him with the butter knife and yelling at him, and that was when I was like 3 or 4. Like, I remember that vividly, and it's just those growing up in that environment that was chaotic, that was violent, that was volatile. That it set the root of the foundation. My father was working all the time. And my mother was pharmaceutically addicted. She was not a very affectionate mom in terms of giving love, giving physical love, or giving hugs or embracing. She was very physically distant. She was very emotionally distant. And a lot of times when I went to school, she was laying in her bed, and I had to, from a very young age, most times I had to make my breakfast and pack my lunch. And it was the latchkey kid generation, but I did have a mom there. She was there, but she was just absent because she was pharmaceutically addicted. And that'll come back up here in a little bit. So my father was my best friend for the first 10 years of my life. And he, after we reconciled, he became my best friend again. And he actually became, her real dad in the world. But when I was 10, my brother had a daughter. And when she was born, my father completely started ignoring me. And my mother said that was his pattern. He always paid attention to the baby. And when there was a new baby, the old baby got ignored and got shunned and got pushed away. It was no longer that important or relevant in his life. And that kind of set a course of like abandonment, right? Where I didn't have a mom. She was physically, mentally, emotionally distant. And at this point, I didn't have a dad. So I felt like I had nobody in the world. And I took care of myself. It was all like self-preservation. That's really what it came down to. And that's going to, again, all this stuff, we're just setting the stage. All this is going to come back up later. All right. You ready to fast forward?
Yeah. I gave a Cliff's Notes version. Yeah. I didn't know you were going to go that in depth.
I think it's important that we tell the story. So feel free to expand.
Yeah.
Now, I got out of high school and I joined the Marine Corps. Angie got emancipated, got engaged.
Yep.
Right?
Yep. Got engaged. 17, I believe, was. Been with him. We got together when I was with him when I left home at 14. And, to this day, I'm very grateful that I had a place to stay because, his family helped take care of me. And again, we're still very good friends to this day. And emancipated, was working, and I started working when I was very young. I started working at 15. And actually, that's how the emancipation even came about, because I was working at a little cafe in Bethesda, Maryland, on Old Georgetown Road called Sutton Place Gourmet. And there was a gentleman who would come in every day and get the same meal, cheese bread and an espresso. And one day he just asked me why I was not in school. And one of the things when I left home was what I left out was when my mom passed away. She worked for the Department of Defense. She was a secretary there. And so she left behind I was receiving government pension. And so I got her Social Security and her government pension. And my dad and stepmom used all that money for drugs. And I remember them chasing the mailman down on the first of the month. That was always just so bizarre. And anyway, so he asked me, and I just spilled the whole story to him, and just don't even know why. I mean, I do know why, but told him the whole story. And the next day he came in and he slid a letter across the counter, and it was from Miles and Stockbridge lawyers in Rockville, Maryland, offering to represent me pro bono in a case of emancipation so that I could get away from my father And then I would become a ward of the state of Maryland, and they would be responsible for my finances until I turned 18. And it was a godsend. And I will never forget that day in court. I just felt like my dad had taken so much from me that I felt so, man, that was a great moment. Him and my yeah.
And that man, I'm not going to mention his name because you didn't, but we're trying to protect folks.
Jimmy? Oh, James.
Okay.
Oh, James J. Dema, attorney at law.
Jimmy, love you. But anyway, that's important. And Jimmy also helped her get into college.
Yes. So, yep.
So she had a 9th grade education. She's a 9th grade dropout. And she started taking college classes. Okay. That's going to come up later too, because there was some self-worth issues and some confidence issues, right? That filtered in the story. I graduated high school. I went to work for a couple engineering companies as a draftsman. I ultimately joined the United States Marine Corps, took college classes all the way through the Marine Corps. And when I graduated, or when I got out of the Marine Corps, I had 2 classes left. I finished my classes, and then I decided to burn a little GI Bill. And when I took 2 classes, and that was biology and abnormal psychology 101. And guess where Angie and I met?
Abnormal psychology 101.
Abnormal psychology. And that is like one of the best parts of our story. We met, and it was me and a bunch of kids in this class. I was the old man, and I kept asking everybody, hey, who wants to go out and have a drink after class? And everybody would tell me, like, fuck off, old man. Right?
Literally.
Not quite like that, but they really didn't. They didn't really want to go out and hang out with the old man, even though I was 27 and they were freaking punks. But
well, I was part of that too. And my ex-fiance was, you guys are literally 2 weeks apart. He's
yeah. But Angie and I were part of some project teams together. So I had her phone number. She had my phone number. We talked on the phone a couple of times strictly about the project. There was really no interest there. But then after the semester ended and the class ended, Angie was going out for drinks with I thought was her friends, but she invited me, and I said, yeah, I'd love to come. And it was me, her, and her fiance. And we went out for a drink. And at the end of the night, there was no more fiance.
Yeah, there was. He and I got into a conflict that was definitely just the culmination of years and years and years of that toxic relationship.
Yeah.
And I walked away, and I asked him to take me to my friend Dorothy's house. Dorothy was not home, so I went back to Mike's apartment, and that was that.
And that was that. So, and she never left. We did have a separation. We were separated in 2014 for a few weeks, for about 5 weeks. But besides that, we've been together ever since. Fast forward, we bought a car together. We bought a house together. We got pregnant, and that all happened
within 2 years.
Within 2 years. It moved really, really quickly. We got married.
Yeah, because that happened. So December 11th, 1999 was the day we went out. And then we found out we were pregnant with our daughter, Katie, just a few days before 9/11. So it was fast. It was real fast.
It all, and it was surreal for me. And it just kept, it was moving too quickly for sure, but I didn't know what to do about it. And I didn't know how to navigate it, but it all just kept, it all just seemed like the right next step, but maybe not the correct next step.
Yeah. I can definitely look back now and recognize that same feeling. Like, it doesn't feel like this is what it's like we were being pushed into it. Yeah. Like it was just like someone was guiding us.
I think we were. And I think we were. I think we were being guided.
Yes. Yeah, definitely. And
Yeah. And it all moves so quickly. And this is where, but look, our relationship started on a bar stool. Mm-hmm. Okay. It started with a lot of alcohol, a lot of blackouts, a lot of drunken nights, a lot of arguing, mm-hmm. a lot of threats,
and name calling, and yes.
And threats and belittling, and me telling you how worthless you were, and me trying to devalue you, and me telling you that nobody else wanted you and nobody else would have you. And it was just, man, it was just
We were just horrible.
We
to each
were
other.
not very good people. We had a lot of fun when we were drinking,
Mhm.
but when it wasn't about the drinking, then all the toxicity showed up, and it was just it was physically, mentally, emotionally abusive.
Mhm.
Very, very abusive.
I just took what I had in my childhood and just carried it over into both
Both
of
of
my
us did.
relationships, both of
Mm.
my long-term relationships. I was the same with my ex. It was very toxic. There was drug use, and there was fighting, there was physical altercations, there was so much emotional and mental abuse. I mean, and then I just repeated the pattern with you, and
Mhm.
you were just repeating the patterns that you saw.
And that's why setting the foundation
Yeah.
of the childhoods, it's all just conditioning and program, and we just carry that forward. I saw my parents argue all the time, especially about money. So we argued all the time, especially about money.
Yeah.
We just and I saw my mother being a nag to my dad and always like absolutely impossible to please. And I married someone who at that time was impossible to please. The target constantly moved, and it was like I was always trying to hit the target, but I couldn't. And I used to get so frustrated because the target kept moving, and I was trying so hard to hit the freaking target. What I realized, I was never going to hit the target because a moving target is it's a trauma. It's a trauma response.
Right.
That's it. It was a trauma response.
Because even there was nothing you could hit, because it's like it was, how far can I push? How far can I, what
Yeah.
was.
How here's my take now. How far can I push him to finally prove that he's going to leave me?
Yeah. And that's what I saw with my dad and stepmom. It was
Yeah.
they were constantly leaving each other and packing us up in the car and going. And but it was constant. There was always threats of divorce. And that was I brought that forward.
Yeah,
So
well, we both did. We both did. This
Yeah.
isn't an Angie
No, we
bad,
bought
Mike good.
all the same things pretty much.
Both of us. The problem solver in me, when she would talk about a problem, I would try to solve the problem, and trying to solve the problem pissed her off, and she just created another problem. And then when I tried to solve that one, the target just kept moving, and it was like I didn't know what to do because there was no winning. But again, that's the trauma response. But the fixer in me was codependence in me. It was deep codependence. That was my father's patterns playing out, trying to fix my mom, trying to be the healer and the savior of my mom. And that's why it's so important to understand our childhood traumas. We were just emulating the behavior that was modeled for us. So we moved out to something really cool happened. Angie and I, it was right after Easter of 2002, and we had when Katie was a couple months old, and we had just had holiday season, and we went to my parents' house. We went to her aunt's house. We went to see her dad and her stepmom, and that day was miserable because all we did was travel, and we didn't really get to enjoy Easter. And Angie said, wouldn't it be cool if we just moved away and we just moved somewhere far away, and we just focused on our little family? And I said, you know what? That sounds wonderful. That would be wonderful. And a couple days later, I got called into a conference room at work, and they told all 100 of us that they were closing the operation and moving, going to invite a couple of us to move it back to Beaverton, Oregon, back to home campus. And I was one of 5 that were invited. Ultimately, 3 of us made the trip, but I was one of 5 invited. And I think Angie said, she planted that seed. And that is the manifestation process. That's the creation process, right? And we'll talk about the creation process at some point, but it's a wonderful, beautiful story. But that set the stage for the next, bunch of years, because we spent 10 years in Portland, Oregon, increasing in volatility, increasing in drama, increasing in pain. And then we moved to we were trying to escape the pain that we were feeling by moving to Beaverton, Oregon. And then we did the same thing in 2013, and we moved right outside of St. Louis, Missouri, and St. Charles, Missouri.
Yep, and problems came with.
And all the problems, because no matter where you go, there you are.
Yeah.
And our lives were full of, when I mentioned my mom was physically, mentally, emotionally unavailable, and me having the abandonment issues, those all just kept coming to surface because I married a woman that became pharmaceutically addicted, was physical, mentally, emotionally distant. I was always trying to chase her because I was afraid of being abandoned. She was playing out of her shadows. I was playing out of my shadows. We beat the shit out of each other. Our daughters were raised in a completely volatile, toxic environment where threats, divorce, seeing pills get pulled out of mouths, having beers dumped over each other because we were so drunk. Well, no, her dumping beers over me because I was so drunk. Not
Me
her.
being in and out of rehab,
In
in and out of psychiatric facilities. Yeah, it was
crime, theft,
yep, arrests. I was on so many pharmaceuticals. I had no idea what I was doing. I mean, it's really gross. And these were all prescribed. I just want to be very clear. I thought I was a better drug addict than my father because I got my pills.
Yeah.
I got my drugs legally, but there were doctors out there way over prescribing. And I unfortunately fell victim to that. And I hate to use the word victim, but that's just, what it is. I take responsibility for putting them in my mouth, but yeah, and just completely unavailable. Like I was just living to be numb.
Yeah.
But I think that those patterns repeated, and I think that as Mike climbed the corporate ladder and started making more money, I was always, to me, like the goal to reach was making six figures. So it was like, as long as that happens, we're okay. And everything looked great on Facebook. And we would go to Mexico every year and it would be posted on social media. We had a boat and we had nice cars and we had a nice house. So I remember putting on this front that everything was perfect, but behind closed doors, just like what you said earlier, it was chaos and toxic and just miserable.
Yeah, and there was infidelity. We're not going to get into the stories, but there was infidelity. There was lots of abuse. There was lots of manipulation, control, guilt, and shame. And I learned this from my own life, right?
Mm-hmm.
Guilt, shame, anger, threats, and blame. They're all weapons of the weak.
Yeah.
So that's what you use when you're weak, when you're not, spiritually strong in terms of not religious strong, but spiritually strong in your mental, emotional pattern, your makeup, right? And when you're operating from your trauma. But the point being, Angie I was riding the corporate ladder. It was always about the next step, the next title, the next raise, the next vacation, the next vacation, the next whatever, the next role. And no matter how much we had, it wasn't enough. And I just kept pushing and I kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And I kept drinking more and more and more. And Angie kept becoming more and more distant. And there was infidelity and there was a separation. And then we got back together. And right after we got back together, because I was spending so much time trying to manage my marriage and my health and my kids, I got fired. I got fired for the first time. And after a long, successful run in corporate, the wheels fell off. They began to fall off. They got wobbly. How about that? And I lost a very lucrative position that we moved to St. Louis for. The benefits were strong. The money was strong. The runway was strong, but you can't fight a war on two fronts. And I was fighting a war at home and a war in the office, and you're going to lose when you fight a war on two fronts. Angie was losing the war because her pills were taken over.
Yeah.
And she was in bed for sometimes 30 days at a time.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Where she would come downstairs, she would eat, she would criticize the family.
I would yell at everyone, and then I'd go back to bed.
Go back to bed and take more pills. Wake up in the middle of the night and just take pills, but she was doing the best she could.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, I was trying to keep the wheels on the family, trying to keep things going, but and give her the benefit. And I always tried to give her the benefit of the doubt that, she's not as bad as obviously as you were. I didn't want to see that part. Right. So we got back together and I got another job. I got 5 months of severance from that first termination. And we drank the whole 5 months. Mm-hmm. And I mean, we picked my girls up on the bus stop at 2:30 and we were both drunk. Yeah. And we had been drinking since the beginning since happy hour started. And, we drank for 5 months. I just by chance got a brand new job right after the severance ran out. So in January of 2015, I started a new position. as the general manager of a firearms manufacturing company, which that was like, wow, this is my dream job. And I got to go to work every day and be in an environment of firearms, which I love, and guns, and I'm a Marine vet, right? And her pharmaceutical addiction just kept increasing, and I'd spend a lot of time on the phone with her doctors, just trying to let them know what the hell was going on, and they did nothing about it.
No,
She was taking 400 to 500 pills a month.
And that's not an exaggeration. That is not an exaggeration at all. And they were all prescribed.
Yep.
I remember going to the pharmacy times to get my prescriptions filled, and the pharmacist would look at the prescription as if it were fake, and they would have to call in every month to make sure that it was legitimate. And it was.
It was a time where doctors were overprescribing everything.
Yeah.
Because they were being compensated to overprescribe everything. So it's not just an isolated incident. It was a whole thing.
The opiate epidemic was happening,
right.
and So
and she had fentanyl patches. You remember that?
Oh yeah.
Like
for just regular back pain.
Yeah, like we're talking about fentanyl coming across and killing people, and she was wearing fentanyl patches.
Yeah,
like it was just nuts. But
and on top of that, having other drugs on top of the fentanyl patches. So I don't know how how I survived those. That's just.
I don't know how we survived. I don't
know how I'm still alive.
I don't know how you are still alive, but I don't know how either of us were alive from all of that. But I got another job.
Yep.
And I lasted 15 months in that job because I was trying to manage home and I was trying to manage work, and I couldn't focus on either. And eventually I became incapable of leading my family and incapable of leading the business. And I got pulled into a conference room where he said, I've got to make a change.
Yep.
And I took him out to lunch. I took the guy who let me go. His name's Dan. I took him out to lunch about a year later, and I said, you saved my life. You saved my life, because I almost committed suicide. So on April 1st, March 18th, 2016 is when the wheels fell off.
Mm-hmm.
Soon after, April 1st, that is, April 1st was a time where it was a very, very dark time, and I almost killed myself. And when I didn't, and when I couldn't, because I didn't have the courage to, believe it or not, when I came down the steps and I jumped on the treadmill.
Okay, I think you're going ahead now.
I came downstairs and I jumped on the treadmill, and that was the first day of the reboot in our life. So our journey of recovery and how we got here started on April 1st, 2016.
Yep.
And life, we're not going to go into too much detail about, the recovery or not in this episode, but what I learned from all of that is the thing that saved our lives were the wheels falling all the way off.
Mm-hmm.
Because after that, I filed for divorce, and we literally hit the reboot and the reset on every aspect of our life.
Right. No, 100%.
Yeah. So anything that we left out? Anything?
No, I don't know. I just to your point, it was the wheels falling off saved our life, and it felt like the world was just collapsing.
Say more about that. Say more about that in terms of how did it, looking back, how do you perceive it, and in the midst of it, what were you feeling?
That's hard to articulate, because it was just, I felt just loss and abandonment and fear and anxiety and security, just all of it, like just everything it was like my entire life was being ripped away from me. I just wanted to die. I mean, I literally just wanted to die.
Yeah.
And I think subconsciously, all those years with all the pills, I think that's what I was just trying to do.
I think so too. Die. Yeah, I think so too. And I know for me, looking at it, it was all necessary, and it was all beautiful. It was absolutely divinely scripted. Yeah. It was obvious that she was being protected by guardian angels, or by whatever. There was something guarding and protecting her. There was obviously something guarding and protecting me. There was something guiding and protecting both of us, watching over us, because we had some work to do in order to be able to share something with the world that you can only share if you come through all that shit.
Yeah.
Right.
The script was written. We were just being guided through it.
Yeah. Now, it fucking sucked.
Mm-hmm.
We could put lipstick on a pig, but looking back, it's beautiful. And there's a teacher named Robin Sharma. He says, all change is scary up front, messy in the middle, and beautiful in the end. And it turned out beautiful. It's not always, there's still some messiness from time to time. But the point is at the end, when you get on the other side of it, you can say, oh my God, that was freaking beautiful. And look how great that was. In the midst of it, it fucking sucks. There's fear, there's anxiety, there's insecurity, there's doubt, there's hopelessness, there's defeatism, there's depression, there's panic, there's sleepless nights, there's freaking I was miserable and I was paralyzed and I was afraid of losing everything from my family, and I was afraid of not being able to feed my girls. I was afraid of still losing my wife. I was afraid of just not having anything. And all of that shit was required, but holy shit, did it suck. What were you most afraid of in that moment?
Losing my family, losing security, losing just being forced back into that lifestyle that I grew up in.
Yeah.
I think that was definitely a big one. Was reverting back to, okay, I got out of that and now here I am, and putting myself right back into it. You
were most afraid, and I know from time to time that it's not completely clean and clear now, right? You're not completely healed. It's for both of us, there's a work in progress, but your whole life was about avoiding the trailer park. Your whole life, everything that you did was about avoiding
going back to that.
Even getting in toxic arguments with me, trying to push me away to test me to see if we were going to get back to the trailer park.
Yeah.
Everything was about avoidance.
Yep.
And when we live in our shadows, that's what it is. There's something we don't want to experience, and you live your entire life to avoid that thing, and you obsess over the avoidance of that thing.
Right.
And for me, my biggest fear was losing my house and losing my lifestyle, losing my comfort, just because I wasn't supposed to have it. My parents conditioned me and programmed me that I wasn't supposed to have this, that I wasn't supposed to be living like this. This wasn't for our family. This wasn't for people like us. And it was just, okay, now that I have it and I'm not supposed to have it, how do I keep it? And I was so afraid of losing everything and not being able to provide for you guys, right? Not being able to provide for you guys. Yeah. All that to say that the journey was exhausting. The journey of healing was exhausting. It required a lot of work. It required a lot of effort. It required a lot of new wisdom and being different and becoming different. But without all of that chaos and with all of that mess, we wouldn't be the people that we are right now.
Yeah.
And I would take this over anything that I've ever had in the past.
Yeah, as long as I don't have to do it again.
Yeah, I don't want to repeat all of it, but this isn't to say that there's this clearing and now we've got this easy life.
We're in our little bit of mud right now for other different things, right?
Yeah,
there's always something. There's always another layer.
It's not quite as deep, but there's always another challenge. There's always another obstacle. The point of life isn't to be comfortable. The point of life is spiritual evolution.
Well, and the difference now is the challenges that we navigate now, we're navigating together. We're a team. We're not fighting against each other. We're fighting with each other.
There you go. So as we bring this episode to a conclusion, it's not Mike against Angie or Angie against Mike. It's Mike and Angie against the problem.
Yep.
Right. And it
was Mike versus Angie for 15 years.
Yep. And vice versa. Yep. And the way this all started was through divorce and through me starting the process of healing, which we'll share more about, the process of healing and becoming different people, because until you become something different, you're not going to enjoy something different. But I started a process. I started the process of healing when Angie didn't want to come on the journey. I filed for divorce. That's when she opted in, and that's when things started to get really, really good. They weren't always easy. They were volatile, but that's where it really started, when I filed for divorce, and then you jumped into the journey.
And I can't wait to start talking about that part.
Yeah.
this was raunchy, having to go back into all that.
Ooh, yeah, but this is the good stuff. This sets the stage for everything. Okay, this sets the stage for everything, and we did the best we could in sharing truth, not embellishing, but sharing the truth and the reality of what happened in our lives.
Yeah.
All right, and this is going to set the stage for the next coming weeks, where we're going to talk about, next week we're going to dive into the relationship part. Okay, a little bit more about the relationship, a survival-based relationship versus a conscious relationship. All right. And that's where we move from Mike versus Angie, or Angie versus Mike, the Mike and Angie versus the problem, at a higher level of consciousness, operating at a higher level of awareness, and really tackling this thing together from a place of commitment to each other and honor to each other, that we are unbreakable and we'll be able to solve any conflict, any problem that comes up in our lives, as long as we stay unified and stay together.
Yep.
You excited?
I'm very excited.
Awesome. Guys, thanks for joining us. It went really long, and I think what I'm realizing is this series is going to be a long series. The episodes are going to be a little longer. But look, if you loved what you heard, follow us on social media, Mike Kitco, Angie Kitco. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. Go and subscribe to the podcast, whether it be on Apple Music or on Spotify. And go to our websites, innerwealthglobal.com. On there, you can get some free stuff to connect, some free content to connect and see where, the books and things that we've published. All right. Love you guys. See you next week.
Bye.